Last night, Slightly Mad Studios announced that they now have full HTC Vive as well as Oculus Rift support for project cars. So we thought we'd jump in with the HTC Vive and give it a bit of a blast. Now, to get it going with the Vive, first of all, you need to load into the Steam VR interface. This is how you launch all VR games from Steam. You can click them on the menu, but it's more fun to do it in our little room floating around in the atmospheres. We're, for some reason, holding the Steam controller as if we're a gangster doing a drive-by. I don't know what that's about, but it worked, and we loaded into the game. And initially, as you load the game up, you see it on a screen in front of you in your Steam environment, which is actually quite cool. I mean, you could have your Steam environment, it could be like a car showroom if you wanted. But once the game's actually gone into the car drive, and then it fills all your view. But for the menus, it's on this little screen in front of you, which is just really cool. Now, as you see, we're struggling with the headphones. This is a nice feature of the HTC Vive, that you do get these weird dangly headphones. You can put them going over the front of your headset and do some shenanigans with them to make them a little bit more convenient. But we've been taking off the headset so much and doing other stuff that we've still got them dangling down the back in their default position. But once the earbuds are in, and we check that the recording's going there, we look like some kind of confused virtual reality child. I'm not sure what's going on there. We're checking the volume levels to make sure it's all working. But once you've got your earbuds in, a nice thing with them over the Oculus Rift headphones is that they're a lot more bassy and a lot more isolating, because they are, you know, your standard in-ear earbuds. We really do look confused there. It's like a stare down. The webcam is on top of the TV. Oh dear. So there we go. We've got the game on the screen, we've got the headset back on, and we're ready to go. Now, Slightly Mad Studios have done some changes for both the Oculus and the Vive version of this, and you'll see we're using the face cursor, which is really awesome. And this is what Live for Speed had with its version of the VR version, is that you can look to aim the mouse to actually activate stuff on the screen. Unfortunately, that's moved our Windows cursor in front of the window we're recording, so I'm sorry about this cursor in your face. You're just going to have to live with it. Fortunately, it disappears when the game actually loads fully, but it's really convenient to now actually select stuff. Now, in terms of driving, obviously very similar to the Oculus Rift, in that you've got the full head tracking, you can look around and you feel like you're inside a car, which is absolutely bloody fantastic. In terms of the actual image quality and the differences between the airborne there, the differences between the Vive version and the Rift version, the main one I'd say is that the Vive does a much better job of brightness than the Rift, and for me that makes the Vive a lot more immersive, and the image for some reason looks a bit more punchy on the Vive, even though the Vive has a slightly lower resolution screen in terms of because of the pixel usage isn't quite as good, but you get a slightly wider field of view. For whatever reason, it does look a little bit more punchy, but then that has a negative of you noticing some of the jaggies in the distance and some other artifacts. But in general, for my preference, the brightness and the sort of crispness that you get from the Vive screen is more immersive than the Oculus Rift screen. Now, we are running 2 times AA to smooth things out a little bit, and I think we could fiddle with the depth of field effects. We've not done that yet, but in this update for both the Oculus and the Vive version of the VR supporting project cars, you can fiddle with depth of field and some of the post-motion effects, which you couldn't fiddle with previously or didn't work properly, and they now work properly in VR. And I definitely think putting a bit of blur on in the distance might fix some of the jaggies we get on really thin objects like lampposts and some of the Armco. So it'd be nice to fiddle with that and see if we can optimise it a bit. But it's absolutely glorious. One of the aspect of the Vive headset that's slightly different from the Rift as well is that the focal, the sort of sweet spot and how much the image is in focus is slightly better on the Rift. So there's more image in focus on the Rift than the Vive, which means when you look down more, or you know, you're moving your eyes around in the Vive, some bits are less in focus, which can be a little bit off-putting. You sort of just have to get the headset in the right spot so that when you're actually looking at a slight angle towards the track, you know, you're getting that the main view that you're looking at always in focus. But the Rift definitely does the focus of the whole screen slightly better than the Vive. Now we're going to change car here, and we went for one of the classic cars. I've not actually driven this before in Project Cars. I thought, okay, give it a go. But as you can see, navigating the menu with this face case is really nice. You can still obviously use your buttons. I was using the buttons on the steering wheel, and they work perfectly fine. And if you start using, say you're using Xbox controller, you start using your wheel buttons, it gets rid of the mouse cursor, it fades off, the face mouse cursor fades off, and then you go back to your controller, and then it'll fade back on if you're not doing anything with your buttons. So it's a really nice integration of allowing for the mouse cursor with the face, or for you to use your controller, or a mixture of both. And I found having a mixture of both is nice, because if you play games on a PC, you kind of just get used to being able to select stuff with the mouse, so it's very hard going back into a more console menu. And there we discover that the brakes are less effective with this car than a modern race car, unsurprisingly. Now what's really nice with this vehicle and with VR is just the sheer amount of detail in the cockpit. And actually that segues nicely onto the graphics settings and how it performs with the Vive compared to the Rift. Now in both cases you really do get to appreciate the cockpit details, which you just can't on a screen. And we say this in every VR video, but you can look around, and in the case with this guy, it's got nice upholstered seats, which is an important aspect of driving simulators. When you're racing, you always think, what kind of upholstery does the vehicle have, and how will that affect my lap time? And in this case, this car has absolutely glorious upholstery, so your lap times will be good, though we're driving it really bad, so they won't be good. So I've already disproven that notion. But in terms of performance, the Rift and its asynchronous time warp is better at actually displaying a smooth frame rate when the simulator goes slow than the Vive when doing... the Vive has a system called reprojection, where I assume it just reprojects the previous frame. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but basically it's asynchronous time warp versus reprojection. There's benefits and negatives to both of them, but in this case with Project Cars, if you've got a slower computer, or you want to up the graphics a bit more in Project Cars, sacrifice frame rate but still have it look smooth with the VR headset, the Rift does a better job of that. Having said that, you can we've got the graphics on reasonably high, we've got the track detail on medium, we've got shadows on low. So we're saying in previous videos we didn't have the shadows on because we're worried they're bugging out. They actually work fine on both the Oculus Rift and the Vive, and the shadows actually add a lot to the immersion because you've got stuff darting around the cockpit and the tracks just look a lot more dynamic. But with the Vive, you have to run things slightly lower quality, as we missed that because of the brakes again. You have to run things slightly lower quality than the Rift in terms of actual on the game side of things to get it to run smooth, or you just need a faster computer. As reference, we've got a GTX 970 and a recent Skylake i7 overclocked, one of the K versions, the latest i7s, 700K, I think it's called. Probably got that wrong, but yeah. So we've got a fairly decent system. We could do with one of the newer graphics cards or a 980, but it's totally playable with the settings we've got now. Looks absolutely fantastic and runs smooth enough. But as I say, it's worth noting you could probably have it visually on the game side look slightly better in the Rift in terms of track details and effects, and maybe a little bit more AA on the Rift than you can on the Vive with a slower system. Having said that, the brightness of the Vive and the punchy clarity of the centre of the image, to me, makes the Vive feel a lot more immersive, and I feel a lot more like I'm actually in the game than the Rift. But both absolutely an incredible way to play Project Cars. Now of course, I think it still is early days for VR in terms of, we'll always bring this up, in terms of the overall resolution. Looking into the distance, things do go down in detail, and although the Rift and the Vive do get you sort of that 150 metres or so of actual good quality image, so it's perfectly usable, perfect drivable, I don't think it would impact lap times, and you also get all the immersion and everything, we're still at a point where it's not perfect, and we could really benefit from high resolution displays. So it's probably maybe 2.5, 3 years until VR is absolutely the definitive perfect solution for everyone in terms of raw image quality, on top of the immersion and the fact that everything's in 3D, and the fact that you can admire the car's upholstery. Look at that, we're driving all over the place. Strangely, this vehicle actually has loads of bags of grip. I guess it's not. We're not going that fast. We're only going at 90 or so miles an hour, tootling along. It's the kind of vehicle you put your sandwich in the back, go to the beach, maybe run a couple of people over on your way and just drive off because you don't care because you're driving such a nice car. We missed the corner again. Sorry about the driving, guys. This is absolutely terrible. But this is mostly just a test of, you know, a sort of media visual test of what it's like with the Vive compared to the Rift, and just making sure that it all works. And it does all work. And if you've got a Vive, I think you'll be really happy now with project cars and getting it going. Now, if you do, if you want to pick up project cars, you can pick it up. The cheapest place to get it at the moment is the Humble Store, I think, where it's about £20. They've just brought out the Game of the Year version, which has DLC. But to be honest, unless you're really into some of the vehicles, or I think there's a couple of tracks which come with that. Unless you're really into it, then you just get the basic version. So all in all, Project Cars works absolutely fine, if not fantastically, with the Vive now, and of course the Rift. So really good job by Slightly Mad Studios. Hopefully the other sim developers are looking at this and they're thinking, oh yes, we definitely need to support both the Oculus Rift and the HTC Vive. iRacing, Kunos, and Sector 3 with Race Room. Please do support for both headsets. It's really important because not everyone has both headsets, and personally I definitely prefer VR with the Vive. The brightness to me immerses me a lot more, as I say, so I really want Vive supporting those other simulators. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and like and share it with friends, and we'll see you in the next video that we do. Goodbye.